Hey y'all, Zeeshan here. Welcome back to another video. In this one, we'll be talking about should you work in the video games industry? Let's find out. While working in the video games industry, I've worked across multiple different titles from AAA console games to mobile games and even casino games. And across these various titles, I've held a lot of different roles and multiple leadership roles. With this breadth of experience, I have unique insight behind the curtain. And for those of you curious about working in the video games industry and whether it's actually worth it, this video is for you. Now, there's a few things to consider when thinking about joining, like how much is the pay, what type of work do game developers actually do, and what are the perks of working in the video games industry. So let's dive into these. So let's talk about why would you want to join. Now, there are a ton of perks that come from working in the video games industry. A few of my favorite perks are free video games, right? Like if you're a gamer like me, you would definitely love having free video games for you and for your friends. Let's be honest, video games are becoming very expensive, with Gen 5 video games approaching $80 for a new game, and being able to get yourself any game you want pretty much for free, as well as getting multiple game copies for your friends, they're definitely going to love you for it. The second one is that you meet awesome and like-minded people such as yourself, people who have passion for video games, who have probably been playing video games since they were little kids. Some of these people are really fun, eccentric, they kind of have like this cool flair to them. A lot of these type of people you don't really meet at top-tier tech companies. They generally are a bit more stern and strict or serious. But at video game companies, the people are really relaxed, they're chill, they're fun to hang out with after work, and it's awesome getting to know them. Thirdly, there's really cool offices. So I've worked at multiple video game companies where they have things like basketball courts or ball pit rooms and things like that within the office itself, which makes coming to the office really fun. Or when you have some free time, you can go play a game of foosball or ping pong or basketball with your friends while still being in the office. And lastly, the parties. The parties are amazing. Video game developers throw some of the coolest parties with great food, a lot of really fun activities, and cool venues. Not to mention, at conferences like GDC, you'll be able to interact with developers across different game companies, working on different types of titles, and network with them, collaborate with them, and just have a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, working on video games is a blast. Regardless of which component you're working on, at the end of the day, whatever you're building is to build a video game that players are going to be interacting with and engaging with and enjoying. So work generally feels kind of like play. Next up, you got bragging rights. So you can go ahead and brag to all your friends or to strangers at parties that you work on video games, and everybody just thinks that's a really cool part of your life and they kind of want to get to know more about you. Lastly, influence. If you are a big gamer working on video games, you get to play a part in influencing the direction of the game. Now, depending on your role determines how much of an impact you'll have on the influence of the video game, but every developer to some extent has some sort of influence on the part or the feature or the component that they're working on, which is really neat. Next, let's dive into the different types of work that they are. I'm an engineer, so I'm going to be focusing specifically on the engineering discipline, but there are a lot of other ones like art, design, production, project management. If you're curious to know more about those, let me know in the comments below and I'll make another video talking about that. So on the engineering side, there are 5 main sort of disciplines that engineers generally fall into. That's going to be gameplay, back-end services, UI, tooling, and support. Let's dive into a little bit more about each of these. So gameplay is going to involve working on specific gameplay mechanics that players are going to be interacting with once in the game. So think about the abilities that you cast as a player once you're in a game of League of Legends. That's gameplay. Back-end services works on components related to the game's generally online services. So think about things like player inventories, customization, matchmaking, friend interactions, and integrations with Steam, Sony, Microsoft, and other first parties. The next is UI. So UI developers focus on building the user interface for menus that players are interacting with. So these are menus that are both in-game and in the main menu of the game, as well as controlling different options that the players are interacting with through the various components or levels of the game. Next, you have tools engineering. So tool engineers focus on creating tools for the developers. So these are things like creating creating content generation tools for designers or for the community to be able to build out levels or build out specific types of content for adding it to the game. Another type of tooling is creating tools to export data to different environments that are needed for the game. And then finally, you have support. Support engineering generally involves providing support for developers by ensuring the game meets benchmarks for stability. So a lot of times these engineers will focus on things like load testing, performing integrations from different branches or data lines to the main lines, or creating patches of bug fixes and that sort of thing for live support. And then finally, let's talk about pay. How much do game developers actually get paid? Now, in the grand scheme of things, compared to other jobs across the US, video game developers make a lot of money. This is a highly paid job with a starting salary for new devs directly out of college, close to 6 figures, around 90K or so. And then senior devs pushing as much as 120 to 180K depending on which game developer they're working for. Now, if you were to compare this to top tier tech companies, the pay is about 30 to 50% lower, but the trade-off is due to some of the perks and some of the passion that we talked about earlier, right? Like if you have a huge passion for video games and you want to get all the perks and you want to interact with all these people and influence the games that you are playing yourself maybe, then it makes a little bit more sense for you. But for somebody that's not necessarily a gamer and has just studied software engineering and wants to build software engineering applications but doesn't have that huge passion for games, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that they go into video game development, because to be honest, there can be a lot of crunch at times, which could make the work less satisfactory unless you are actually a gamer and super passionate about the product. If you're not, you might as well take that 30 to 50% pay upgrade and go to a top tier tech company like Google, Meta, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, some of those type of companies. But if you are a huge gamer and you do have a huge passion for gaming, then I would recommend definitely go into video games. It's super fulfilling. The people you meet are extraordinary, and the type of impact that you can create and the type of legacy that you can leave behind is legendary. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comment section below, as I'd love to engage with you further, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.